Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday night. Tuesday night is a night where we started with Tuesday night with Ben Stowe. Then he became busy, and then we forgot where he lived. And then after that, we kind of lost Santa and Christmas and everything. And then one day we found Ben Stowe, and here he is. And Santa and Christmas are back. I'm so excited. Let's have a party! Yay!
Yay!
Good evening, Ben.
Good evening, John. I should have worn my Darth Vader Christmas hat. I forgot.
Somebody was mentioning that in the chat room already. I mean, it's like, goodness, they've got your things all picked out of what your attire is.
Well, I don't want to be, I don't want to be too predictable, I guess. So, not that there's any, Star Wars stuff.
No, there's nothing Star Wars related at all in your area there.
Oh, not a bit.
Down below and off to the side, and
yeah, there's a few things here around.
Tonight, gang, we're going to be doing kind of an Ask Ben Stowe. I've got a couple of questions to start off with as you guys are getting your questions ready and putting those things into the form of a question for us. And we're just going to hang out and chat and see what kind of damage we can do.
To my reputations?
We're just going to go. We're just going to go.
This is, hey, we're just going to have an open forum show. We're going to put Ben on camera. And just see what he really knows, right?
Well, and the positive thing now, for those of you who watched our show we did at DJ Expo, that was one of the first times I believe, Ben, you saw the chat room going at the same time as the show.
It was fun, yeah. And somebody mentioned it tonight. They said, "Oh, I'll post some things in the chat room," and of course now I can't actually see it. I don't have the advantage of standing next to you looking at the chat room, so. Which is maybe better. I mean, you went berserk, So.
Yeah, you were. It was like a kid in a candy store. Oh, look at this! Some people are. Yeah, I mean, it went well.
It went really, it's fun. It's fun to see the interaction. It's fun to see. It's more conversational. I think. It's not. Oh, I'm here and I'm talking and you're just listening. It's more interactive.
Yeah, Robert Ludwig was looking at and he's. Oh, I thought that was Star Trek behind you. There's always one.
There's always one. Reminds me, I brought something with today. There was a request that maybe we have some giveaways or some coupons or something.
Oh yeah.
I thought, well, what could I do? What could I do? I mean, so I've got coupons.
Cool.
Yeah.
Coupons. Free hug.
Yeah, I got a bunch. So here we go. You know what? Anybody that wants one, next time you see me at a trade show, free hug. All right. And if you're not a hug kind of person, that's fine. We can do a handshake or, fist bump or whatever your deal is. But as promised, I got coupons.
You're making it rain coupons. Yeah. I mean, oh.
Coupons for everybody.
Everybody gets a hug. You get a hug. You get a hug.
And you get a hug. And you get a hug. And you get a hug.
Oh, funny.
Whether you want it or not, you're getting a hug. Anyway, or a handshake or a fist bump or whatever. But anyway, I just thought, well, I could do something in the Christmas spirit. So
no, good stuff. Good stuff.
What more can you give than yourself, right?
Well, and that's the thing. And when you go to these shows, getting a friendly face and a hug. Of course, you guys maybe would prefer, getting a hug from Kat, but I'm just saying. Morning, Stowe. Jimmy Spin's a big hugger. Yeah, there's a few people out there I've run into the DJ industry who are big huggers.
Yeah, I'm a big hugger. Look, if I'm a big hugger, but look, if you're not, that's fine. I'm not going to invade your personal space. Yeah. I mean, that's cool. Like I said, we can do a handshake, fist bump. We can just act all cool and macho, be like, what's up?
So man, yeah.
I'm good with that. But hey, if you're a hugger, come on, get some sugar, baby.
Oh, Lord. Maybe we need a topic now if we're going to start talking.
Yeah, see, this is your punishment for sending me off unscripted. Yeah.
So let's talk about the first. And we talked a little bit about this last night, where a gentleman went into a venue, and the venue wants him to hook into their sound system. They have like a 70-volt system. We've talked about 70-volt systems on past shows. But they have, in this particular case, they had RCAs back behind the DJ area where they have the DJ, and they want him to hook into that sound system. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a couple of tips or ideas on how to make that as successful as possible with our DJ show, so you're keeping the venue manager happy because they're like, oh, yes, we want to make sure that you have this so that everyone can hear in the room, kind of a thing?
Well, It depends.
It's so quick. I was expecting that a little later.
Well, you just set it right up there for me. So, you throw a softball. Uh, when it's RCAs, right away, we have a pretty good idea that if it's RCAs, then it's an unbalanced line level input, and we can just match it with such. If we have an RCA output from our mixing board, great, so be it. Whether it's a booth out or a master out, some mixing boards don't send your microphone out through the booth out, so that would be a consideration as to what you use and what you want being transmitted through the 70 volt. But let's assume that the house doesn't want you to use your own gear at all, and you're just plugging into a house for simplicity's sake, so we can remove that from our consideration. Um, right away, I kind of wince when you say RCAs, because I can picture from the install world, we now have this unbalanced connection going a long, long way. It's very vulnerable to noise and attenuation, and but that's not really your problem. That's the venue's problem. Of course, it becomes your problem because the sound isn't going to be as good, and your reputation kind of rides on that. But that's really not much you can do about that except tell the house no.
No.
See where that goes. Now, the other thing, is, and hopefully the house has XLR connections, which we could probably safely assume are balanced. Now the only question we have is whether or not they are mic level or line level. And that's really important to know, because of course we're talking about 1.2 volts or 0.002 volts, a 0.002 of a volt, or a little over a volt between line and mic level. And if we try to drive a line level into that mic preamp, we're going to have a really big problem. Then we could maybe use something like a direct box, or something like that would, or a pad. There's different devices that would bring that down. So it really does depend on what you're plugging into and what you're connecting from on your board. And unfortunately, a lot of venues maybe don't even know. The person there working at the banquet says, "I have no idea what it is."
Yeah.
So you might have to do a little sleuthing. Find out what's at the head end. Is it like a Crown 14M mixer? Those are used in a lot of venues. Is it an auto mixer of some kind? Is it, and we could just go on and on and on. So there's the 5-second tip. Find out what you're plugging into, and then plug in the appropriate signal for that, both in terms of balanced versus unbalanced and the level.
You mentioned, of course, it's most likely an unbalanced signal that's going to be, or line that's there.
If it's an RCA.
If it's an RCA, yeah. So how far of a run can a person run with an unbalanced and have a reasonable confidence that you're not going to be picking up too much noise? Is that 2-3 feet, 10 feet?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd say. I'd say, less than 10 for sure. There's people will tell you, I did it over 100 feet. And I'm going to say, I don't believe you. I mean, I don't believe that there was no loss in quality. Maybe you didn't notice, but maybe you just got really lucky. But bottom line, I try to keep those runs as short as possible. 6-10 feet at the most, really. Very local connections, not point to point, and that's why we have direct boxes and things in the live sound world.
If a person is running into the situation, and when you plug in, he mentioned in his case there was a clicking sound going on. If there's weird noises like that, is there something a person can do to eliminate that, or is it just what you get is what you get?
You could try an exorcism, or some kind of a ritual sacrifice or something. Here again, it really depends on where it's coming from and how much control you have over it. Go to balanced if you can, but if you walk into that's all they've got, you kind of stuck a little bit, I think.
So because we've talked wireless audio in the past, I had this vision in my head. If you had we had the wireless system where we came out of our board, we went into the transmitter, and we wirelessly sent that signal across, and maybe went into a different input into their house amplifier. Say they had a balanced input that we could go into.
Sure.
Would that give us a reliable connection if it's within 50 to 100 feet?
Well, potentially. I mean, again, I have a high degree of confidence in wireless, but things can always happen. There you start kind of weighing the trade-offs to say, well, I get this clicking on the unbalanced side, and that sounds bad, so maybe I'm willing to take the gamble over here. I mean, wireless done right can be very reliable, and that's a pretty good solution, to be honest with you, John. I might be inclined to say, yeah, I'd go for that.
And we've talked about different little belt pack systems and things with some of our other videos. If you guys go search wireless video, we've talked, and there's some good options out there. But I've run into, not as extreme as the gentleman who talked about that, but yeah, he was saying that they had all sorts of different noises and buzzes and hums that were coming through his system.
Chances are that's a problem in the house system, not your system. I mean, especially if the problem isn't there. Now we can get into some other nasty things here. And sorry, I see you have another question loaded, but I'll just throw this in at the end. When we talk about an unbalanced signal, we're talking about our shield shares our signal cold, or our signal minus, or however you want to refer to it. So if we have grounding problems, they're going to become greatly exacerbated with that ungrounded connection, especially potentially over a long distance inside a building. So, it can magnify any problem, both in your system and theirs, and you can create this unholy union of new problems. It's just a recipe for disaster. Unless, now there is an unless, and I've seen this before too, that in the house system, sometimes these devices are digital. It's only unbalanced for a few, maybe centimeters before it's converted in an AD converter and sent via Cat5. Rain has their little RADs, or their Radio Design Labs has their TXJ2. So it's unbalanced at the point of connection, but that doesn't mean that they don't have some mechanism behind that's balancing it and sending it back. And again, there's just a lot of questions that one has to consider. But if it's noisy and it doesn't sound good, then chances are that's your culprit.
Very much so. That balance could be really, really quite ugly. If you guys have any questions, of course, put those down into the chat. I'm kind of watching that as we go along here. 70-volt systems, for those who don't know, if we start pushing, so say we're hooked up, we're not getting some nasty noise, and I start pushing the mixer a little bit, can I overdrive a 70-volt system?
You can overdrive any system. I mean, it's not necessarily a product of it being 70 volt. You can overdrive any system.
Is it more susceptible?
Well, maybe, particularly when we're talking about dance music, because I cleverly made this up here. So I don't know, maybe this will catch on, but I call it the 70-70-70 rule. And when we're talking about 70 volt systems, we talk about a low frequency roll off of about 70 hertz. Lower frequencies can cause the transformers that are necessary and inherent in the 70 volt system to begin what's called transformer saturation, and it can kind of create this vortex, and it sort of becomes self-feeding at that point, and can be very damaging and detrimental as it just starts sucking that power into the transformer. So we want to have a 70 hertz roll off, and the other consideration is I typically use a 70% rating. So if my amplifier is 100 watts, I would say my effective power is 70 watts,
okay.
For example. So, my 70-70-70 rule.
So with the 70 volt system, and it's, that 70 watts, does it matter how many speakers that's pushing? So, because I've been in one banquet room that had 12 speakers up in the ceiling, but it was all being controlled by one amplifier.
Yeah, and that's the advantage of a 70 volt system. That's why we would use them, is by putting a transformer, we now have an inductive load, so we can stabilize the impedance of the line. Whereas we talk about 8 ohm, 4 ohm, whatever in the pro audio world of the low impedance speakers. Here, that would be impractical. We'd be running an amp channel to every 2 speakers. We know that, well, you should know, right? If you watch any of our shows, you should know that amplifier loss is relative to the load that it's driving. Your loss is greater when driving into a 2 ohm load, because proportionally the loss of the cable is greater, as compared to the load itself. If you lose an ohm in the cable and the speaker's 2 ohms, well, your cable loses 50% of what your speaker uses, So anyway, that would be really, a disadvantage to using that type of system. So we put these inductive transformer loads on a 70 volt system. Now we can put just oodles and oodles of speakers on this line. We have the advantage of using sort of like a transmission line and high power to run lots of these speakers with very, very low wattages. Maybe 7 watts, 15 watts is all a ceiling speaker is drawing, and it's sufficient for that use. Of course, the logarithmic ratio between amplifier power and loudspeaker loudness sort of plays in here. Anyway, long and short of it, so, it's not the 70-volt systems are bad. It's a case of it depends, what you're trying to do. Would I use a 70-volt system for a dance? No, I wouldn't. That's not where I feel their strengths are. But I'm not running a venue, so.
Right. So really during that cocktail time, that would be something that it could function for that with the background music and maybe some microphone announcements and such.
Absolutely. It's what they're designed for. Perfect for that. And there are some really good ones, and you can pair subwoofers with a 70-volt system to give it a nice, deep, full, rounded sound. We do that all the time. Maybe the subwoofers, because they're fewer, maybe they're being driven on a low impedance load. So we have we'll call them high frequency boxes, or our ceiling speakers being driven on a 70 volt at, with a crossover point of 80, 90 or 100 hertz or something. And then we've got our subwoofers carrying that load. So we're well above the 70 hertz cutoff that comes with Ben Stow's 70-70-70 rule. I got to think of a better name. It doesn't really roll off your tongue. But
not so much. But I mean, I could see the T-shirts. The whole
yeah,
the lunch boxes. I mean, I could just see merchandise.
You think it'll catch on?
I think it could. It could.
People will be hanging 70-70 stuff on their wall or something.
It'd be awesome, man.
Watch out, George Lucas, coming for you.
It's gonna be a whole new generation of old people. Be like, hey, look at this. This is cool. 70-70-70, man.
I got to tell you, this is totally random ADHD. You mentioned old people. I guess categorically, I'm beginning to become one, but I'm resisting it with everything I've got. My wife and I've been watching old episodes of Columbo. Remember that? Detective show? Yeah. Throwback to my childhood. Great stuff. And of course, I love Columbo. He's always so unassuming, but he's a pretty smart guy. Anyway, there was a scene last night in one of the episodes we watched where he was in a TV repair shop, and it just brought back all these memories of me growing up in a TV repair shop. And you thought, oh my gosh, there was racks of tubes and parts, and I'm like, oh yeah, we used to be able to fix these things.
Yeah.
It was just fascinating, to think about that time when a TV was such a capital investment, and you would actually, take it to a repairman. Or I remember going on calls out to houses to fix TVs as a young child, just kind of, being tagged along.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know where that is. Totally random, but old people and their stuff.
The times have changed though, and it's like, it's only $1,000 TV. Trash it. Get another one.
Well, and it's not just because it's only $1,000 TV. It's just because it's really impractical. There's very little through-hole circuit boards anymore. There's certainly no sockets or tubes. I mean, it's, when you open up a TV, there's probably one circuit board inside, maybe two, and it's impossible really to repair. Not impossible, but impractical. I think impractical is a better word. Now you could replace the whole board, but, depending on what goes out in the TV, you're probably junking the thing,
Yeah.
It's probably not going out right away. So, at some point you say, well, it's $1,000 TV, but I had it this many years, and now it's going to cost, $600 to fix $1,000 TV. It's not really worth it, maybe, I don't know. Unscripted today, live show, unscripted.
Oh, that's quite all right. Another question I had, somebody was asking if there's a difference, because they were looking at solder, because they were wanting to fix something with solder, a wire, I believe is what they were.
So I am on topic.
Yeah, you are actually, because that's where I was headed to. It's like, he's actually going to kind of bridge us, and he doesn't even know it.
Excellent.
So there's different types of solder out there.
There are.
And can it give us an idea of what they should be looking for? Because he was looking and he's like, I don't even know. There's so many different ones.
Well, let's make it simple. So in the good old days, the old and golden days, these days growing up in the TV repair shop, we used to have soldering guns, and they were big. I mean, they're a gun, and had tremendous amount of heat and a large metal surface area, and the solder, was like half the diameter of a pencil. Anyway, those days are gone. So now, we've got solder that's very, very small. At least I certainly recommend that. Because the circuits we're working on are very, very small. We want to control how much solder gets into the work area. So I use a very small conical tip on my soldering pencil. I don't use a gun anymore, and use a very, very small piece of very, very small diameter of solder. And of course, I think fundamentally the question that you might be asking is, well, what kind of solder do you use? And in the old days, we used to use like a lead tin mix. And the reason is tin is unstable on its own. It will want to kind of whisker out. And with increasingly smaller circuits, that's a greater risk. And those whiskers don't have to go very far to create real big problems.
Sure.
But of course, we don't want lead anymore. There's the ROHS standard, and we're trying to, keep ourselves on the planet a little bit longer. So we don't want lead. So now we have things like silver solder, they call it. We use things like antimony to kind of stabilize that tin. I think really any lead-free, solder now with like a tin antimony, blend and some kind of a flux core is a good thing. The flux helps keep contaminants out of the solder and that sort of thing. So
really, when you're going to a local audio shop like your local Radio Shack and such, or if they even exist anymore, last time my boys went to I believe Menards and wanted to pick up some solder. There isn't a certain type then, just be looking for some of the smaller gauge and such, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's been a while since I really looked at all the different kinds of solder. I kind of got myself into a comfort zone, and I bought a large case of it. So I have a bunch of 2-pound spools of lead-free, tin antimony solder with a flux core, rosin core or whatever. I don't have any idea what Menard sells, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't myself, because it was Brandon was doing some things with his.
I think it also depends on how bad you need it.
Yeah, that's true. Because the local hardware store has got the one that's the size of an extension cord, that thickness, kind of a thing for soldering pipes and things. It's like,
well, right, and that probably doesn't have any kind of a flux core, rosin or whatever. So now you have to deal with the contaminants and whatnot. So I would use a solder that's designed for electronics, and nowadays, again, lead-free solders are so prevalent. I tell you what, I could take a look tomorrow and see. I'm trying to remember the diameter, of what my solder is.
Yeah,
it's not more than half a millimeter, maybe.
Yeah, they're really, really thin compared to what it was.
Very thin. Yeah, and I don't know, honestly. I'm sorry, folks. I don't remember everything, I guess.
Okay, just if you guys have any questions, then, and we will kind of go from there. They're just chatting back and forth right now, and
you guys are totally missing the point of this show. So
yeah, exactly. Everyone's listening. So
it's a social event.
Yeah, they're here talking and such. And now they got to see one of the little things.
Well, while we do that, oh yes, yeah, we got the
I was
coffee.
Going to say, you haven't shown the coffee mug yet. You got to show us that.
That was a Christmas gift from last year. I just got this today, actually, just literally about an hour before the show. So I got to show this off. It's handmade, and it is really quite fantastic. It's a Star Wars scarf, and we've got both sides, the Empire and the Rebellion here.
Very cool.
And yeah, she did just a wonderful job. It's the wife of one of my coworkers at NLFX made this for me, Jessica. Many of you've met her at Mobile Beat. She's pretty fantastic. Yeah, she made this for me, and they literally just stopped over and dropped it off maybe an hour ago.
Goodness, very talented. Wow.
Oh, she's fantastic. And not just because she can knit. Think the world of her, but
yeah.
So I got somebody knocking at the door here in my little geek cave.
Day and nights. If you could find, I can't scroll up that far to see it. So I'm sorry, I missed it when you had a question earlier. So if you could pop it down again, that would be great. Yeah, they're talking about the solder and such. Jimmy wants to know what's some of the hottest products, and let's kind of extend it to for 2016. What have been some of the hot products out there for DJs?
Well, anytime a new controller drops, that seems to get people's attention. I don't know, I think the changes have now been more gradual and less leaps and bounds. But of course, when the 8000 came out, that was a big hit. And we started looking at, some of the autonomy of some of these things. Of course, the DDJ SZ2 just dropped. So any of these incremental, improvements in what ultimately is a DJ's work surface probably the hottest thing all year has been the decor love letters from Eliminator.
Yeah, those are very
Those
cool.
things are just nuts. It's a great upsell. You can make your money back within a gig or two, which, for those of us who work on the touring side and we have, these 5 and 10 year investments, we just look at that and we hate you guys just a little, just so that what, really, you're going to pay for that in a gig?
Yeah, one,
But good for you. I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
yeah.
So those things have been really hot. I guess those are the two things that just pop right into my head.
Yeah, because those have both been very, very hot this fall. And of course, we're getting ready for NAMM with another round of lighting, and then the beginning of the year we'll have all the new 2017 lights hit. So there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff.
I'm kind of anxious to see what happens at NAMM, and of course I'll be there and you'll be there and all that. But it seems as NAMM kind of cycles. There are years with a lot of stagnation, a lot of kind of ho hum.
Yep.
And then there are years where you just feel like the entire world changed. And I don't know which kind of year this is going to be. It's been pretty quiet.
I've had the exact same conversation with Lori. It's like, last year was kind of it was a good, there was some neat stuff. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, it was incremental improvements,
Yeah. It was just like, we've upgraded this and we've added another this and we've made it better, and it was good. It was a good year, but it wasn't like there've been some years it's like, oh my gosh, we'd have had a tough time picking our top 10 things.
Well, the rate of technological advancement is certainly increasing overall, and nowadays we almost live where we expect category killers like the iPod or the iPhone.
Yeah.
Where things that completely change the way we do business, completely change the way we live, and we've begun to almost expect those things on a daily basis, and that just really isn't how it works. But really, there's a ton of innovation happening out there. And that always precipitates itself into our products, as they filter into the ecosystem that we live in. So I feel like this year could have some really good stuff. Because last year was so kind of, just nothing went, wow, blew your hair back. I think this year is probably due for something.
Yep.
I'm still on the edge of my seat for wireless. I feel like that, as the FCC thing is sort of kind of settling out, and really fascinating about that. And I'll be speaking on that at Midwest DJs and a few other places. I'll be speaking on, the update of wireless. I'm kind of an RF nerd. We've done a number of RF shows. But what they're finding is maybe that frequency wasn't as needed as they thought. I mean, the wireless carriers are just not willing to pay for it quite like what the TV broadcasters want for it. So the amount of bandwidth that they're talking about taking away keeps shrinking, and I think that's going to keep shrinking. I don't think they're done cutting it yet until they can actually sell it. So, it'll be very interesting to see I think we're going to have a lot more left than we thought we would.
Interesting.
And then we'll see what the wireless carrier manufacturers do in terms of new products for us.
Cool. All right. Now we've got some questions coming in here.
All right. People are like, for the love of God, give them a question.
Tell him, quit talking Star Wars. Let's see. The first one: is there any way to tell if you have two outlets if they're on the same circuit or not?
Yes.
And that is? Well,
you can plug in a device into both outlets. You can stick a knife into one outlet. I don't recommend that, by the way.
Yeah. Let's go with the more recommended.
The Disc Jockey News lawyers just went berserk here.
Yeah, they're just like, no, do not listen. I'm not responsible for any.
So there's two ways, and that really is, that's a fail-safe one, is to plug devices into two outlets and start killing breakers and see if they go off together. Now, whether or not the venue is going to allow you to do that, that's probably a tougher scenario. Yeah. The other scenario doesn't have much more likelihood, though. There are devices that are called sniffers that you can plug into the outlet, and then you can go back to the panel and you can use a probe, which is trying to pick up an inducted signal and see if you're getting that reading on that breaker. Those are pretty accurate, but when wires run together in conduit, that induction can occur across wires, and so you can get a lot of false reads off it too. So really the surefire way is to kill a breaker and see what all dies with that breaker. I know it's not pleasant.
Not magical, but
I'll tell you what, if somebody else knows a better way, I am all ears.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I want to just make sure I didn't miss anything. Cold weather. What's the best way to when your gear is out in the cold and you bring it inside? What's the best way to get it up to room temperature and eliminate or reduce the condensation issue?
I recommend hot chocolate. Uh,
And
that's
now
this is apple cider though. But anyway,
Nestle. Now from word from our sponsors, Nestle hot chocolate.
that's right. Brought to you by Swiss Miss. Uh, time. Time is the best way. The best way is to avoid it altogether if you can. And those of you who are on my Facebook, you just saw we had a gig. We were doing a nationally touring act, and we had a semi that we had to load in minus 24 weather. That's minus 24 Fahrenheit, which is crazy cold, like, almost 60 degrees below freezing. And the venue didn't have a loading dock, which for us is a major kick in the pants. So we had to use a skid steer to load this gear, and that took a tremendous amount of time. And you could see there's a little bit of wind burn from the cold on my face, and we all kind of endured that a little bit. I don't have the good sense to just stay inside. I mean, my guys are like, hey, listen, just you don't need to be out here. It's what we're here for.
Yeah,
that's not how I roll. So when that occurs, the best thing is time. Give your gear time to warm up slowly. I try to keep it, closed up so that we don't bring it into a bar with lots of, or a venue that has lots of warm, moist air and immediately have condensation on the circuit boards and that sort of thing. That's really the best thing.
Yeah. There's just sometimes, especially in our climate, there's times where you've got to just have time. Open the cases up. You let them air and.
And it makes sense anyway in the winter. I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but when we're traveling to gigs in the winter, it doesn't matter if you're pulling a minivan or a semi. Road hazards are something to be considered too. Give yourself extra time to get to the gig. Yeah. Give yourself time to account for travel delays. Worst case, maybe you get to the gig really early and you get a chance to sit back and watch some old episodes of Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe or something. I don't know.
Exactly, and you can learn a little bit. And then when people came up there, you can
find yourself behind the eight ball, rushing, due to bad weather, and then your gear doesn't have a chance to warm up, and now you create problems with your gear, and you start stacking yourself further and further and further behind. So time.
Yeah, I remember we had one show when we got to the high school to do it. We had given ourselves time, and then we get there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we decided to move it up an hour. Can you guys start?" And it's like, okay. So we had everything set up, and we didn't think about the CDs were stored in the back of the trailer.
Oh,
didn't think about that because typically, I pull CDs out and I lay out, the ones I was going to start with. We were rushing.
CDs you speak of?
Yeah, this is a long time ago. This is a long time ago. So when it's like, okay, great, we've got like 2 minutes, grab that, and then you pull it out, and it's like, oh, look at that, all fogged up.
I remember doing outdoor gigs in the fall, with CDs, and the CD players would fog up. The lens inside the player would fog up itself, and I just don't miss those days. So I would say time is the number one way to solve the problem, but this is a problem that's best to prevent. If you can keep your gear indoors and only have it outside for transportation or whatever's necessary, that's probably best. But
cool. Okay, my next question here is the Electro Voice RE2 microphone. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh, extremely. I use one when I go do my little nerd speeches.
And I was wondering if that can handle a bit of a mic drop.
It can. Now again, not saying that you wouldn't drop it once the wrong way and break it, but we used to demo those things by throwing them and dropping them and having a really good time. I presume, Howie, we're talking about like the 767 or 267 capsule, the handheld. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite demos is to screw the top off that thing and stand on it. And and granted, I'm only I'm 190 pounds. Which, by the way, shout out to my friend John Price. John Price?
Oh yeah, he has been. Wow.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
First Randy Bartlett and now John Price. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a crazy year. The Cubs win the World Series and I outweigh John and Randy Bartlett. I mean, this is, But shout out to John. He looks fantastic. He's down to like 168 pounds. I told him at Midwest DJ last year, I said, hey, John, he was just starting this transformation. I said, when you get down to my weight class, we could wrestle. I used to wrestle back in the day. Well, now I couldn't wrestle him. I'm 20 pounds heavier. I'd feel it's not really a fair fight anymore, So anyway, so I guess, get somebody bigger than me even to stand on those things, and they'll take a tremendous amount of weight. We actually drove a small car over at one time. And so, yeah, it should take a pretty good drop, especially if it's point down. But like anything, you drop it the wrong way and it's curtains,
Yeah. Unfortunately, some things just, no matter what, even with
I hope John watches our show, by the way, so
he typically, he keeps up with what we're doing.
Hit the gym because it's, you and me, buddy.
Yeah, you gotta bulk up now, man.
I know I need to too. That was embarrassing. I can't believe I just did that. People are like, wow, he's really taking this geek thing seriously. That's
okay. I'm just trying to see if I missed. I thought there was another question that I had missed. Oh, let's see. And because we haven't seen the movie, I'm going to. What is the robot in K2?
Yeah. K2, it's sort of, how we had these, I haven't seen Rogue One either yet, by the way.
Yeah.
This is love. Okay. This is love. I've got a brother that lives in San Francisco and my other siblings all live out of town, but everybody's coming back to where I live for Christmas. And I'm waiting until they come back so we can all watch it as a family. So
whoa,
this is love.
That's pretty impressive. And on my side, the kids are waiting until Dad can go and sit in the theater and see. So they're right there with you, because Michael had his birthday last Friday and he's like, we're going on my birthday. And then he's like, oh, wait, Dad, how far can you see? Well, about that far. Oh, when are you going to see? It's like, well, surgery's the 21st. Over Christmas break? It's like, yeah, I should. So.
Well, my son's excited. He's observed that, we don't have a Rogue One poster yet. We have the other 7. And so I guess that's something we have to consider. But anyway, so K2 being the robot. Now, noting that I haven't seen the movie, what's the question?
Which one is better, K2 or C-3PO?
There was a really interesting interview I read the other day between Anthony Daniels, who of course played C-3PO, and John, Tudyak? I can never pronounce his last name right, who plays K2. Anyway, John, whatever his name, I don't know, John somebody. Mm-hmm. And 3PO, Anthony Daniels, and he had kind of this great banter as the actors who played the droids. And of course, Anthony Daniels had to be bolted into a suit, whereas, John was able to do this all with motion capture. I would have to say, which is better? By all accounts, K2 really almost steals the movie as a great character. And again, I haven't seen it. But it's hard to look away from a droid like 3PO, who was, core in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And even has roles, of course, in the first 3, so I'd have to say 3PO. K2 hasn't unseated 3PO as the king of the droids. The only real competitor for 3PO would be R2-D2, who, of course, is his counterpart. They were the electronic Abbott and Costello. You really have to have one to have the other. So I don't think that's a valid argument either.
So we got to see it, and we'll have to we'll revisit this in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm sure the character's great. I've heard the character's fantastic. I just don't think that being a good character unseats,
the history. Yeah.
No doubt. That's sort of like saying, could Kylo Ren ever be Darth Vader? No, not really. Darth Vader's Darth Vader. You got,
it's a different world. Different world. Ben, we got a couple of minutes left. And there was, that's going to be too big of a topic. I don't want to get into that one.
I'm curious. What was it?
We were going to talk about, I wanted to talk about haze and fogger fluid. The differences between the two, and I wanted to dig into that one a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get our chemistry.
That's what I really wanted to get into, because some people are going that route and such. New Year's Eve is coming up.
Triethylene glycol and diethylene glycol.
See that you get into that.
For your next. All right, so New Year's Eve.
So New Year's Eve, we're wanting to have a nice little system and such a little show that's going to cover about 50 to 100 people. Can something like that go with? Some guys were talking about these little micro systems. Brian Red's been really big with that, like the was it the RCF? RCF's got one.
Evox.
Evox. There we go. Thank you.
Oh, I love the Evox.
Evox. I think there's a 5 and there's an 8.
There's a 5, 8, and a 12.
And they were wondering the difference, the crowd size coverage of a 5 compared to an 8.
Well, and first of all, shameless plug, but right now, NLFX, the company I work for, has the best price I've ever seen on an Evox 8, best price all year for sure. Package deal with covers and everything, and it does expire at the end of the year. So it's a great time to scoop one up if you're thinking about it. Get that tax write-off, and don't pay that money to Uncle Sam. Hopefully they're not bugging our show, but hey,
it's the reality. It's the way it is.
Invest in your business. Crowd size is a toughie because it comes down to style of music, expectations of what you're trying to accomplish with the gig. I don't know. I would say a 5 is probably adequate for, your 100-person gathering. For me, there's no real compelling reason to get a 5 other than it's smaller. But I find the 8 to be really adequately small and easy to carry around. So I think, me personally, I'd probably just get the 8. Now you've got a rig that, if you had a pair of 8s, you can do, a wedding reception for a couple hundred people. I don't think with any problem. Again, it just depends. If you say, well, I want, deep earth shattering bass, well, come on, a little reality here. I talked to a guy the other day who says, well, I'm doing, gigs for 1,000 people. What do you bring in? And I told him, and he about died, I said, well, my clients have an expectation. And he's like, wow, it's crazy. You're bringing in 12 dual 18 subwoofers for this. Well, not to my clients. I mean, not for what I'm trying to accomplish. So you have to, I'm not saying he's wrong and I'm right, but it's relative to what you're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? What the expectation is, is it a dance? Is it a concert? Is it, cocktail music? Have enough rig for the gig. That said, I would say wedding dance, a couple hundred people, Evox 8, piece of cake. 2 of them. I like 2 of them, symmetry. I've heard people use them for bigger gigs. Again, your mileage may vary. I'm really reluctant to go out and attach a number to it with so many variables.
For sure.
But they're fantastic rigs. Well, gosh, I mean, Midwest DJ last year, we did, I don't know how many, we did half a bowling center with 2 Evox 8s. And then we added 1 more 18 just to really thicken up the bottom end, but it was plenty loud for a good, 15 or so lanes of bowling. So.
Cool. Yeah, where I've heard the Evox 5 being used the most is actually some of my friends in the UK who are DJing out of the back end of a little 2-door car, and they use the 5s because they're small. I can put that in the back seat. I can put my controller in the back seat and everything, and I can have my mate with me. That's not what we call them here.
Yeah. But, well, if you have a 4-door car, you can use an Evox 8. And again, I'm not knocking the 5. It's just. Your mileage may vary, I'm just giving you my opinion. It doesn't mean it's right. It's based on my preferences and my experience, but I found the Evox to be a tremendous system. Really performs very well and covers very well. Conversely, there's other small systems like the EV-ZXA1 sub and the ZXA1 tops, where instead of a line source, you have a point source, and that's been a killer rig.
Yeah.
I know Brian has used the ZXA1 sub for a long time with a lot of success too. And I think he's on after me, so you can
ask him
what's up with that. But
yeah, a lot of good stuff. Gang, we're going to wrap things up here because, as Ben said, Brian will be on in a couple of minutes. I'm going to put the link in the description. Or in the chat. It's also in the description below if you are watching us on Facebook, if that's where it's at. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's down below. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Ben, thank you much.
Did we see the shirt?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that.
I wore this just for you.
This was
just for you.
Jimmy was watching and is like, oh my gosh, that I got to get. And that is awesome.
I got a couple more up my sleeve. So maybe if we get another chance to shoot a show after Christmas, I'll still be in the spirit. So.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll aim for that. This is our time where we can actually do a few things. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Click like if you get a chance before you bounce out to the next video, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Ben, thanks for being on tonight.